Hello, friends. This is Vinium on the Checkin In podcast. Come again to another episode. Today is episode number 114, and it is currently Wednesday, the 15th of December. There we are. One of the benefits of doing these podcasts is I get to keep up on what is, what's going on as far as the progression of the week, because you kind of have to when you're keeping track of these things. But I'm glad to see you guys coming in for a few moments, however long you're able to join us on the Checking In podcast. This is the podcast where I like checking in with you guys, checking in with you. This is a weekday podcast, so these are frequent check-ins. Frequent check-ins, so because I personally have found benefit in checking in on myself, asking the questions I ask, and growing personally as a result. And so this is what I do for my self-care, and I want to share that experience with you guys as well, saying, hey, come along for the ride. Come along for the ride as we get to know ourselves a little bit better. On this podcast, we have three key pillars that we continue to resonate with, celebrate, and review often. Those three key pillars, of course, being how aware are we of ourselves? Oh, goodness, for those of you who have been following for some time, I hope you are also seeing some growth in your own awareness of yourself. What does it look like to get to know you? How can you surprise and delight yourself by discoveries that you're making along the way? As you ask the various questions that we review and answer, and then how do you also actively practice kindness to yourself? How do you express patience? Because we are a work in progress. Each and every one of us, we are continuing to evolve and change over time. We're continuing to grow and mature. We continue to gain insights and wisdom through the various experiences that we're going through in life. But we need some patience along the way. How do we give that to ourselves? And then finally, how do we experience happiness? Because goodness, who doesn't enjoy happy moments, right? But happiness not to the exclusion of the other emotions, but in addition to all the other emotions, which are just as necessary and important. Welcome to the Ben Checking In podcast, episode 114. Today's question, I'm asking a very simple one because we have a very short amount of time here before I got to skedaddle for work, is how do you express generosity? How do you express generosity? Here we are approaching the season of the year where generosity is primarily celebrated and focused on. This is a season of giving where we give gifts, where we give time to spend with our loved ones. And so, for most of us, we hear this theme, especially at this time of year. I want to encourage you to consider what does it look like to live in this zone of generosity throughout the year. It's nice to have a holiday that can help us remember certain things that we want to focus on, like Valentine's Day, where we express love, like Thanksgiving, when we give thanks, etc. But how would it look for us to be able to do these things on an ongoing basis? So, with generosity, how can we not only focus on being generous at this point? Gabby, hello, my dear friend. How can we not only express generosity only at Christmas time, but what does it look like for us on a day in and day out um, dynamic to express generosity just because it is a part of our life? I wonder what that would look like for all of us as we focus on this attribute. How do you express generosity? Gabby, how are ya? It's good to see you again. I hope you're doing well. Gabby's a dear friend who I met while driving Uber, and so she introduced me to her circle of friends here in Calgary. I think you're back in the UK, right? If I'm correct. A dear friend, though, and I'm very glad that I got to meet her amongst other stellar human beings along the way. Generosity, though, what does that look like for us to express it on an ongoing basis? In my setting, I think of generosity in a couple of ways. I think of generosity, one, by way of one who's received so much already. I'm aware. Hi, Pinium. I'm back in England. Gotcha. Yeah, that's what I thought too. Definitely miss you over here, my dear. Definitely miss you over here. Binium says user 1572. It's 5:30 in the morning. I know it's 5:30 in the morning. We gotta do what we gotta do though sometimes. Hello, Julian. How are you, my friend? Yes, I gotta do this podcast this early, even earlier sometimes, just so I can make it to my job on time. So it's just the dynamics, but you can still catch the recording on Instagram, YouTube, and of course Spotify as well. So I'm glad you're here, user 1572, because it's an early morning and not many of us do well with early mornings. Julian, I'm well. Thank you for asking. It's good to see you. Friends, the question I'm asking is how do you express generosity? For me, what drives my generosity is it's gratitude. And for me, gratitude usually happens when I do a lot of contrasting. I get to compare so many of my experiences in my 4+ decades now of existence. In my 4+ decades of existence, I've had so many experiences where I've had a lot of grace extended towards me, a lot of kindness, a lot of investment from others. And as I reflect on all these people, Ollie, hello, as I reflect on all these people who have put into me in sacrificial ways, it makes me super grateful to say, holy crap, there's all these folks who are coming along and making me the person who I am today. And I really appreciate that. That contrast of where I once was, needing help, needing patience, needing insight, needing investment from others, leads me to this next point of saying, I'm so thankful that I was able to grow the way I grew as a person over time to the point now that I am thinking, okay, because I've received so much, I can't help but say, how can I give back, right? I'm not thinking of giving back to those individuals who invested in me, but I'm thinking more in terms of how do I give to those who I have the opportunity to give around me, where it's really needed, I think. It's kind of like, let me give you an analogy. Let's say a millionaire comes along the street and he sees me on the side of the street, homeless, and he says, hey, I'm going to try and help you out. And so let's say this millionaire pays for my rent for a year so that I can get my legs back under me and I can get a job and so on. I can express gratitude to the millionaire saying, thank you for the way you have given to me so that I can get a little bit further and ahead in life. That's one way. But if I were trying to pay him in kind, I don't think I could match that because we're in different levels of economic success, and so I couldn't just say to him, "Okay, now I'm going to pay for your mansions, plural, for the next year." I can't do that, right? I can give him thanks, saying, "I really appreciate what you did," and then I can use what I'm able to have access to with the way I work and the opportunities that I get along the way, I can now take that to the next level and say, I'm going to look for those that I can help. And usually it's those who I have that ability to invest in their lives, right? What does that look like for me to do that? And we keep it going forward. We pay it forward, as some would say. That's what I love by way of expression of generosity. It's a beautiful thing when you can help others who are unable to help you. And that's one of the things I admire most in these expressions of generosity. It's not saying that this is the way. Hey, right on, Julian. I'll look forward to getting your message, okay? Awesome. Um, it is more along the lines of how can we give back, especially to those who are unable to pay us back. Why is that critical for me? That's critical for me because it reminds me that this is not something I want to do because I want people to know and say, wow, Benny was just amazing because he does this. And I'm not being generous so that I can get kudos from my community saying he's a really good person because he shows how generous he is. I want to be generous in a way whereby no one may know about it, and yet I still did it because by principle, it's how I gave back, right? How can we, like, for me, I'm asking, how can I give in such a way where I'm not looking for accolades? I'm doing it even when no one was watching, because that is what it means for me. You need true generosity to be able to give without waiting for that sort of hey, this is my true agenda here, and that's to get more praise to myself. How can I give where, as one of the verses in the Bible says, My left hand does not know what my right hand is doing in such a way where that isn't the agenda. That is the kind of giving that I find so compelling. And so, even as we're in the season of generosity, and for some, it's really stressful, the season of generosity, because they're like, I feel I'm supposed to do this, but I don't have the means to. I don't, like, I feel the pressure to do it, even beyond my means. And this is a really stressful time for some of you. I hear that. I hear how difficult that is. I'm asking for maybe a shift in the way that you're approaching it and saying, how can you give? How can you participate in this without all of that pressure, where it is actually something beautiful for you? It's like an expression of holistic, this is what I was made to do. Here's how I was made to make my mark. I'm going to be generous in the ways that I can within my means. Even if no one sees, I'm going to do this because that is what it means for me to practice this attribute of generosity, whereby I am becoming a better version of me. So it takes being aware of what you can give, doing that with willingness of heart, happily, and in such a way whereby in the aftermath you're like, I didn't do this for the praise or like the glory. I did this because this is what I like to pass on and make this world a better place. For my little corner of the world, however small. Who are those people in your life you can express generosity to? There's a variety of ways you can do it, by sharing resources, money, food, by sharing your time and attention. That's one of the ways that I primarily express my generosity, by giving your insights, helping others along the way. There's a variety of ways in which you can share generosity and enrich someone's life around you. But my challenge to you and to me is, how can we make this not just a once a year thing during Christmas time, but how can we intentionally make this a part of our day in and day out lives? How can we do this on an ongoing basis where it becomes a part of the fabric of who we are as people? And in so doing, we're able to inspire others because they are able to get a little further ahead because of our generosity, because of the encouragement that we gave them, the way that we uh, came alongside them and said, hey, let's help you a little further on here, and I'm going to freely give. That's one of the things I love about generosity, is it's when it's offered freely with no recompense, because then that would be otherwise considered payment. But what does it look like when you're freely giving and expecting nothing in return except for the way that we grow as individuals? Friends, thanks for joining this episode. Very short, like I say. I gotta run to work. I'll touch base tomorrow. Love you guys.